Welcome back everyone. This is the fourth part of our project, but it is more like a follow-up from the previous lesson, and we're gonna explore the rest of the tools from the edit mode. I'm gonna start using why not this object here, but it's not gonna be really like very explanatory because those tools that I usually use for something else. So the first is called the polybuild. The polybuild, usually it's for a step that we call retopology, meaning that we start with a shape that has a complex topology, and usually it's to simplify it, to make it usable in a context like creating a video game where the models, the topology, and the complexity of the models are something we need to take care about. So if we say we have like a plane here, this polybuild tool allows you to create easily new geometry based on what is already existing. So in this, I don't think during this project we're gonna use it, but I might use it maybe on some other project later. Okay, then the spin tool we're gonna use later for another object, the smooth tool. Okay, as it says, it's about smoothing object on geometry. If I select all of this, okay, and then I use it, you can see that before we had sharp angles, and with the smooth tool everything is rounded up like smooth. Okay, the edge slide, okay, I'm gonna switch to the edge mode, is when you have an edge selected you can modify its position, but because it is a slide, the edge will always follow the already existing curve, meaning that if I move this edge, it will follow this and not go straight down. For example, if I only move it on the z-axis, it will go straight down like that. Okay, and if I do an edge slide, you can see it's following the curve that already exists in both directions, either up or down. That means that you can modify an edge here without having to worry about the alignment with the previous or the next edge. The shrink and flatten tool, it's almost similar to the smooth tool, and it will just shrink, meaning scaling down object, and try to flatten it. See this edge here, when I use the shrink and flatten tool, it is now a flat edge. But again, you will use it on a surface that you want flattened and not something like that, which is not really what we want. Okay, and then the rip region, if I start maybe with a vertex, we just open my geometry and create a hole, as if this were fabric and we were ripping it. Okay, I think it works with edges as well, and see, that's it. So the last tool we haven't seen is the spin tool, and as I said, I'm gonna show it to you with the next object. I'm just gonna wrap this up, deleting this plane here. Okay, so let's select all the faces that I've created here and then delete them. Okay, and that brings me to something new again. You can see that if you use the delete menu on edit mode, you've got a lot of options here. I'm gonna select faces here because I want to delete all the faces, but let's go again to this place. Okay, something that is really important to take into account as well is that if I am in vertex mode, I can select one vertex. If I select two vertices that are already connected with an edge, it is as if I had selected this edge, meaning that if I switch to edge mode now, the edge is already selected and I can consider my selection as being on an edge. If I select those four vertices here, it is as if I had selected a face, although I'm in vertex mode. Because if I switch to the face mode, you see this face is already selected, meaning I can carry on operations on faces although I am in vertex mode and I have only selected vertices. Next things I wanted to show you is this. So if I select one vertex and I delete it, meaning using the delete menu and selecting vertices, this have deleted the vertex. And so because I deleted the vertex in the middle, an edge can't exist here because an edge is composed at least of two vertices. So these edges here have disappeared, the one that were here and here, and because these edges aren't there anymore, the faces that were here have been deleted as well because they can't exist without edges. Okay? I'm gonna go back and now I'm gonna do the same in edge mode and deleting this edge. It's doing the same thing without this edge here. The face here and the face here can't exist. And if I'm selecting a face and I click on delete faces, of course, the faces disappear. Now, the other options which are available are only edges and faces or only faces. If I select those four faces and I use the only faces mode, you will see that the edges that were here are still here because edges can exist without faces. They can't exist without vertices, but they can exist without faces. And if I go back and I select only edges and faces, you will see that because I have removed the edges here, here, and here, and here, those faces can't exist anymore. Okay? But now if I switch to the vertex mode, you can see here the vertex is still here, and all the vertices that were presently here are still here as well. Okay? Because they can exist without any edges or any faces. A vertex can exist on its own. Okay? Let's go back again. And now let's have a look at the other options, which are here the dissolve part. I'm not gonna go over those ones. Dissolving means removing either the vertices, the edges, or the faces without altering the surface of the object. So if I select this vertex here and I select dissolve vertices, you will see it has deleted this vertex and the edges here because they can't exist without the vertex, but we still can have a face that is delimited by those edges. Okay? If I go back again and now I select an edge here and I use dissolve edges, you'll see it has removed the edge, but still we can have a face that is contained in here. Okay? And now the last thing is dissolving faces. If I dissolve the faces here, it has removed the faces, of course, but again, because it's keeping the surface of the object as intact as possible, it has created a face that exists within those edges. Okay? Earlier I used the knife tool, but usually I don't use it the way I did. Most of the time I use the loop tool when it's about adding a loop on an object, but I sometimes use the knife tool for this kind of situation where I want to have a clean topology, and so I'm adding geometry or edges to an object. Usually, when you create a cut using the knife tool, it will snap either to vertices or to edges to simplify the process. When it's snapping on the vertex, you can see this red square, and when it's snapping on an edge, you can see the edge becomes yellow. So what I'm gonna do is this, and as it is written on the option down, right mouse button new cut, you can right click on my mouse and then do a new cut like that, press enter to confirm, like that. And so I have my face and a clean topology that have loops. So one last thing before we switch to the next object. In real life, there is nothing with such sharp edges except maybe knives and swords, because they need to be sharp. But this object will cut your hand every time you touch it, so that's not what we want. So we've seen earlier that the bevel tool allows to round corner or shapes at least, and that's what we're gonna use on all of these edges here, at least a little bit, so that it doesn't appear so sharp. Okay, I can do it for this as well. I absolutely need to do it for this. Okay, those as well. And for the could do it this way, so this will be rounder like that, and we can do it for every part of this model. Let's just do this on those. That should be enough. Okay, there you go. And the last object we're gonna model is, of course, a cauldron. Same as usual, I'm gonna speed up some parts of it. I'm gonna delete this object, although I could have kept it, and add a plane. What I'm gonna do here is switch to edit mode, unselect only one of the vertices, like this, and then delete all the other one, so that I am left with only one vertex. I'm gonna move it to the center of the world, so at position 0, 0, 0, okay, in global. And from this, switch to this view, and then I'm gonna extrude the vertex along the curvature of this cauldron. So let's do that, like several steps, so that it's round enough, like that. Okay, so now I have a profile. So the latest tool I needed to show you was the spin tool, and now I'm gonna use it on this. Look how the handle is like. Okay, I can either start from this point or this point. I'm gonna start from here, and see what it does. It duplicates the profile and spin it around this axis. I can have a look at the options here and select, for example, an angle of 360 degrees so that it's a full complete circle. Then I can add more steps. The steps are the number of times the shape is duplicated. Okay, it's 12 for the moment. Before that, I'm gonna show you the option use duplicates. Clicking on this will just duplicate the original shape, and as we've seen with duplication or extrusion, if you duplicate a shape, there is no connection between the original one and the other one, and that's what we see here. Now that's not what we want, so I'm gonna uncheck that and then add something like 36 steps so that it's even more rounded. Okay, so now you can see that there is an option here checked, auto merge. This means that after all these, so 36 steps, the last steps will stop here, and because there was already the first profile, they will automatically, because I checked this box, merge together to close the entire shape. Okay, so I need that to be checked unless you want to have a gap in between those, but that's not what we want. So here we are, we have our cauldron. Okay, and why haven't I chosen to do the inner profile? This is because I wanted to show you something else. I'm gonna switch to the face selection mode and select all those faces and show you that I can also, I'm gonna start to inset first a bit. Oh, this doesn't really work. Okay, why this doesn't work? Because remember I talked about merging things. I think the vertices here in the middle aren't merged. What I'm gonna do, switch to the top view, switch to wireframe mode and vertex selection mode, select all the vertices here, maybe just the one at the top first and then the one at the bottom. So I'm gonna start like this, and you can see there is a hole. What I can do to fix that is to go to mesh, merge, and select in all of these options either by distance, meaning all the vertices that are separated by a certain distance will merge together. But what I want to do here is just collapse all the vertices into one, so I'm gonna choose collapse, and then I'm gonna do the same for the bottom vertices. You see, these are the vertices that I created, and that was the first one from the shape I did at the beginning. So mesh, merge, collapse. Okay, let's remove this. So let's do it again. Hop, hop, select that, and then doing the inset. Okay, you can see it's working. I'm gonna scale down, and what I'm gonna show you now is that you can also extrude inward, meaning not only outside but inside of an object, exactly like this. And I'm gonna do the profile extruding inward from the front view so that I can follow the profile of the exterior of my cauldron. So I'm gonna up, scale down, extrude a bit, scale up. What would be the perfect thing to do would be to match every edge here so that we will have a good topology. But because this is the inside and I know how we are gonna use it, meaning we are not gonna see a lot of it, we can be a bit less rigorous with the way we model that interior. So I'm skipping 1 out of 2 edge loop here. Okay, and now we've got the interior of our cauldron. what we see here is a very sharp edge. Let's do what we did before, add a bevel to it, and let's add a few segments. Okay, that's it. Now we have our cauldron. It's perfect here because it's very obvious that now we can see all the faces of this cauldron as if it was more like a disco ball. I'm gonna show you a last thing. Okay, so what I'm gonna talk about are called smoothing groups, or it's about smoothing a surface or not. What we see here are three objects: a cube, a sphere, and a cylinder. We can see, as for the cauldron, that we see all the faces of the objects, and maybe in most of the cases we want this to appear smooth. What we can do is asking the software to make it appear like it's smooth, meaning that if I click on this object and I right click, I have two options at the top, which are shade smooth or shade flat. At the moment it is shaded flat, meaning every polygon is flat and so distinct from its neighbors. But if I choose shade smooth, the software will make it appear as if it is smooth. You can still see the definition of the sphere here hasn't changed. And if I switch back to shade flat, the profile is still the same. But this is just what the software can do. Why I present you three objects is because we can also choose to shade smooth the cube. But as you can see, it's not looking really nice nor realistic because the cube is not rounded, so the shading, meaning the way we see it, feels wrong. Okay, so it's better to shade flat a cube, to shade smooth a sphere. But what if we have a cylinder with a part of it that we want smooth and a part of it that we want flat? This is shaded flat, but let's switch to smooth shading and see we have the same kind of strange effect that we had on the cube, meaning that the top, which is supposed to be flat, try to be smooth. To fix that, we can go to this tab of the property panel, and then in the normal section activate Auto Smooth. Auto Smooth will work when the object is shaded smooth first, okay, and this value tells the object that every angle below 30 degrees will be shaded smooth, meaning that this, between these two things, there is an angle. I exaggerate it a lot so that you can see, and this here is below 30 degrees. Okay, that's why it is shaded smooth. If I erase that, you can see that the angle here, if you follow the shape here, this angle here is 90 degrees, so it is above 30, so it is not shaded smooth. You can see it when I will raise this value, and when it will reach 90 degrees, up, this tries to be smooth. Okay, so the default 30 degree values will work most of the time, but you can select a more appropriate value depending on your object. So, knowing that, let's go back to our cauldron, and what we really need to do here is clicking right on it and select Shade Smooth. Now we have a pretty nice looking cauldron, and we can do that for all our previous objects as well as adding bevels to the sharp edges. But I'm not finished. There are still a few parts left of the cauldron, like the handles, and also these little metal things. I'm gonna start with the metallic objects, and as we have seen before, I can add an object to this object in edit mode. So I'm gonna add a small sphere, and because I have this menu, I can select the properties of the sphere. What I want to do now is reducing the number of segments and the number of rings, because they are only small objects and I don't need them to be that detailed. I'm gonna select 10 and maybe 6, and I'm sure that's enough. Okay, and now I'm gonna transform the object. Let's switch this so that it's about the size we want. And what I am gonna do to create all the other ones is again with this selected using the spin tool. Spin tool will allow me to have a copy of this object all around the cauldron. What I'm gonna do is still select the 360 angle so that it's going all around, and maybe from the top view select how many of them are so that I can fit the reference. Looks like there is less than 36, something like that. 23. I'm gonna choose 20, or let's choose 23. Feels appropriate. Okay, and now I have my details. Okay, for the handle I'm gonna use a cylinder and a curve. So remember last time I told you we can't merge a curve and a mesh object. That's still the case, but what we can do if we don't want to modify this as a curve anymore, we can right click and select convert to and choose mesh. You can see that you can convert a curve to a mesh, and in some situations even a mesh to a curve. So I'm gonna convert it to a mesh, and now I'm gonna join it to this object, go to edit mode, then select this object and the handle. A shortcut to do that would be to select a piece of it and then go to select and choose select linked. This will select every other element that is linked to this object, and they are linked because they are one object originally. Okay, same for this, using shift on my keyboard to add a selection. I have selected this edge and I can do the same, select linked. So now I have my handle. I'm gonna switch to this view and then do a duplicate the other side, do a rotation of 180 on the z-axis, and then position it here, and now our cauldron is completed. Oh, look, this is not what we want. We don't want this to happen. Let's have a look at what does that. It's the cylinder. What we can do here is selecting that, select linked, and then from the front view remove this from the selection because it's the outside we want it. Maybe this more. We can see this is the outside of the cauldron, so it's okay, and this is the inside, and we don't want it to go in the inside. I'm gonna do the same thing here. Select this, select linked, and remove the pieces I don't want to move, and then move it like that. It's inside, we can't see it. Okay, now we don't have this problem anymore. and our cauldron is definitely done. Whew. Okay, that was a really long video. I'm sorry. I hope you managed to follow it until the end without any difficulties. I'm trying to do shorter videos all the time, but as we progress, we have to make videos longer because there's lots to explain. So hope you have a good time as usual, and I see you in the next tutorial. Bye!